Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, from the sunny Caribbean, you are watching What You Need. Now, for me to recap the Shane Mosely versus Ricardo Mayorga fight, I want to do something a little different, a little special. I want to compare their first fight to their second fight. We're going to look at the first round in both fights, okay? Why I want to do that is because I have a point behind what I'm going to say next. So let's get into it. On your left is Shane Mosely versus Ricardo Mayorga, the first fight. On your right is Shane Mosely versus Ricardo Mayorga, the second fight, okay? Now, in the first fight, as you can see here, Shane Mosely's in the black trunks and gold, and Ricardo Mayorga's in the blue and white. First of all, you can see Shane Mosely, both guys use their jabs pretty well, but both guys are all about throwing the overhand right. See, Ricardo Mayorga kind of whips his overhand right, and Shane Mosely, you'll see, he will throw the jab. There it is, jab to the body. Ricardo Mayorga trying to respond with a jab, throwing a big looping overhand right. Shane Mosely throws a kind of windmill overhand right there and goes into a clinch. Both guys have decent boxing skill. Both guys were world champions. You can see Shane Mosely kind of flicks out his jab, but sometimes he throws a nice straight jab. Ricardo Mayorga, again, feinting his jab. There, Mosely gets his jab in. Really nicely done. But for the most part, what both guys are trying to do is land their overhand rights. The jab is to set up the overhand right. There it is again with Mayorga. Throws a big old overhand right. Mosely just tries to throw the jab to keep him off. Blocks the punch. Ducks low, dips low. Throws his overhand right. Ricardo Mayorga is kind of hitting him with a whole set of right hooks in the clinch. But basically the strategy is jab, jab, overhand right. See, there's the overhand right by Mayorga. Mosely slips that. There's Mosely's overhand right. Then he throws his body shots. And some of the shots hit Ricardo Mayorga in his kidney area. Mayorga usually with his theatrics. There he is with the jab, overhand right. Mosely throws a kind of half jab. Throws his jab. Tries to get in. Notice they try to step in with their jab. There's Mosely teeing off with that overhand right. Basically going for broke with his overhand right. Mayorga throws the jab. Throws the jab and overhand right. That lands. There's, ooh, my. Kind of catches Mosely off balance a little bit. Overhand right that kind of rocks him. There's another overhand right that rocks Mosely. So there's not much variety between the two guys. They're just trying to jab, come on the inside, and then kill each other with the overhand right. They're trying to knock each other out pretty much. It's nothing really great about that other than that. There's a little headbutt there. There's a right to the body by Mayorga. Mosely trying to get that right on the inside, countering. Mayorga tries to do a leaping left hook that misses. That's the end of the round, okay? Now that's the younger Mosely versus the younger Ricardo Mayorga, okay? Let's look at the older Mosely, who's in the black trunks here. Who's in the gold trunks, and Mayorga, older Mayorga, who's in the white and blue. And this fight happened over the weekend. And let's just see how that compares with the younger Mosely and the younger Mayorga. Now, straight off the bat, you can see that the older Mosley's a lot wiser. The Ricardo Mayorga, you can see he hit him with a body shot. Mosely came back with a body shot, jab to the pit, both guys. Caught him with a beautiful overhand right, Mosely, already. Caught him with two overhand rights. But notice, Mosley's a lot smarter. Look how he jabs to the body, but he kind of keeps outside of the range and even leans back to get virtual distance. He jabs coming in very easily, just slides in. Mayorga throws the overhand right that catches Mosely in the head. A jab to the body there by Mayorga. A lot more boxing by both guys. There's Mayorga coming with the overhand right. Mosely sort of slips it partially. Notice Mosely's not really getting caught as much. He's a little slicker than he was when he was younger. Catches him with a nice jab right there. Stays on the outside. See, he's feinting and then he jabs. See, Mosely's actually smarter to me. He's wiser than the younger Mosely. Here comes Mayorga, the usual Mayorga. Not using as much jabs though. Mosely catches him with overhand right. Mayorga catches him with a left, a right to the body. There's a headbutt. You can see that they had head clashes before as well in the other fight when they were younger. Because Mosely dips his head down to come in the inside. But Mosely's not lunging as much. Notice he's actually feinting as if he's going to come in. And then he throws the jab. He's keeping his jab in Mayorga's face. Misses with the overhand right. He's not trying to tee off on Mayorga. There he is keeping the jab, keeping Mayorga at bay with the jab. Then, whoa, look at that beautiful left hook. And another left hook on Mayorga. So he's boxing a lot better than the younger Mosely. Isn't that something? Taking his time, working Mayorga, breaking him down. Much better. Blocks that punch. Mayorga comes leaping in with a left hook. Catches him with a nice jab though. Very good jab. Mosely kind of leans back and pivots out the way. Nice little head shuffle a little bit. Now you'll notice that the older Mosely, though he's not bouncing as much as the younger Mosely does and expending a whole lot of energy, he's actually a lot more crafty and a lot more skilled than the younger Mosely, which is very impressive to me. And it shows me again, what do you actually mean by a boxer being in his prime, and what does that mean? I'm going to ask you guys this question again. What does it mean for a boxer to be in his prime? Clearly, this version of Mosely that I'm looking at is much better than the younger version of Mosely I just saw. The younger version of Mosely, he's got a lot more energy, but he's not as effective as this older version of Mosely against Ricardo Mayorga. Now, mind you, Ricardo Mayorga hasn't been boxing for a long while, and also both guys come in a lot heavier. And you know, the other Mosely that we just saw, the younger Mosely and the younger Ricardo Mayorga, they had to make the 154-pound limit. The older Mosely and the older Mayorga you just saw here, they came in at around 166 pounds. Mayorga came in and Mosely came in at 160. So basically it was kind of like a middleweight fight, where it should have been a junior middleweight fight, but you know, it is what it is. But you can see that basically both fighters are doing the same thing. They have the same styles, more or less. Mosely's showing a little bit more in his style. Mayorga's boxing a little bit more. But basically they look about the same, except that they're not as energetic and bouncing around the ring and all of that like the younger guys. They're more paced. They're more seasoned, you can see. Now, what this tells me is that people say, oh, this fighter's not in his prime. I heard Robert Garcia say of Floyd Mayweather that he's still in his prime. And to hear Robert Garcia say something like that is really remarkable. Okay? Miguel Cotto is still in his prime, ladies and gentlemen. All you have to do is look at footage of Miguel Cotto as he's boxing, right? When he was younger in the junior welterweight division, in the welterweight division, and then look at Miguel Cotto now in the middleweight division. Even look at Miguel Cotto back in the time when he was in the super welterweight division, and you will see that Miguel Cotto is actually, he's boxing pretty good, okay? And he looks more or less like Miguel Cotto. In fact, at a certain point in time, Miguel Cotto looked a little bit too big, and at a certain point in time, he seems to have slimmed out, and he actually looks better against Sergio Martinez or against Daniel Gil. Yes, I know Martinez had foot problems, and I know Gil had weight problems, but at the same time, he looked really remarkably fresh and good against those guys. And I want to see how he performs against Canelo Alvarez. what I'm trying to say to you guys is that when I look at guys like Mosely, like Miguel Cotto, guys like Bernard Hopkins. You know, people said, "Oh, Bernard Hopkins is over the hill after Joe Calzaghe. He's not in his prime anymore." And Bernard Hopkins went on to go and win, light heavyweight titles. Okay, 2 light heavyweight titles. You know, and when I look at the younger Hopkins fight and the older Hopkins fight, they fight more or less the same. Again, the younger Hopkins has a little bit more energy and a little bit more bounce in the step, but the older Hopkins has more craft and skill than the younger Hopkins and more experience. And so you see more variety and more interesting movements by the older Hopkins. So I would say that a boxer is in his prime when he can perform at the top of his game. Some people say a boxer goes out of his prime and into his prime. I don't know about that. What I can tell you is that if a boxer can perform at the highest level still in boxing, he's in his prime, even if he loses or not. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that you're going to lose straight fights over and over and over again. That shows that you're not in your prime, obviously. But you can sometimes go into a losing streak and then come back onto a winning streak and continue winning fights. And that tells me something. I'll give you another example of another boxer who I think is in his prime still. Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez lost to a number of different people, in his career. Even to Manny Pacquiao. But that doesn't mean he wasn't in his prime. People think being in your prime has to do with your age. It doesn't have to do with your age. It has to do with your performance in the ring. And can you maintain that level of performance? And obviously Marquez has maintained that level of performance. However, styles do make fights, and there are just certain styles you cannot overcome. Shane Mosely, he had problems with guys like Vernon Forrest and Rinky Wright and Floyd Mayweather. Even he had problems with Miguel Cotto because these guys had really good fundamental boxing skills, and Shane Mosely sometimes has difficulties with certain types of boxers. Okay, so that's what you're basically seeing. But to say that Shane Mosely was out of his prime, he's not performing as well. He's probably in the slump, but I don't think Mosley's out of his prime. If anything, I think Mosley's gotten better as a fighter. So this is just my take on it. I just wanted you guys to hear the recap of the weekend's fights, as well as talk a little bit about boxers being in their prime or not. And I have an issue with people saying that a boxer's in their prime or boxer's done just based on their most recent performance. You can't say a boxer's not in his prime unless you see that club fighters or really low-level competitions beating them. You can't really say that unless you never know. Sugar Ray Robinson he lost to Jake LaMotta. Was he out of his prime? Absolutely not. He went on to win 89 fights. Okay, he went on to win 89 fights. He was 90 fights undefeated, like Julio Cesar Chavez. So for you guys to say just because a boxer's been beaten or even beaten once or twice that they're out of their prime is to really be kind of naive. By the way, Shane Mosely knocked out Ricardo Mayorga with a body shot at the end of the 6th round. You guys have a great one.